Welcome to Tell Me About This Song, a podcast where I talk to musicians and songwriters about a song that they've written. My name is Jacob Haller, and today's guest is Tracie Potochnik. The song she'll be talking about is Cecilia and the Saints. And she's my first guest ever, so I appreciate her allowing me to use her as a guinea pig.
I'm happy to do it.
Oh, great. Where do you think we should start with this song?
So this song is about something that happened about a year ago, I guess. It became an internet phenomenon. And I am inspired a lot by sort of things that are external to me, like by news in particular, not like Congress passed, blah, 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 but just, sort of stories that really strike me as interesting or that resonate in some way. And so I don't know if you remember, well, you do, because now you know about it, but if your listeners remember the story about what is commonly referred to now as Monkey Jesus, but there was a woman named Cecilia Jimenez, and she lived in Spain, and she's 80 years old, or she was at the time, and at the church that she went to, there was this beautiful fresco of Jesus with the crown of thorns. And I think it had originally been painted in the 1930s, but it had really fallen into a state of disrepair. And so she decided to take it upon herself, and there was some debate about whether she had done this with the full approval of the priest, or if she had just sort of snuck in and did it in the middle of the night sort of thing. But she decided to take it upon herself to restore this fresco because it was her favorite fresco. She really loved it, with quite disastrous results. She was not a professional art restorer.
Yeah, it's really something. I'll definitely put up a link to the Wikipedia article and a picture on the show notes.
Yeah, so it's funny because when this story hit, she was just completely mocked,
right.
And it is funny. That's why sometimes someone said to me after I wrote the song, they were like, "Oh, you should do a YouTube video with the song and just images of the painting," and I was like, "No," because what I felt. So I sort of laughed, or I was horrified, all of those things. But then I felt like the story really resonated with me in that I saw this woman sort of trying to do something really profound and holy, and having this divine intention behind what she did. And I really saw it as an act of love, a sort of a love for the painting itself, love for what it represented. And I thought it was really just sort of this perfect metaphor for divine intention and human failing, I guess. And so I was curious, really what made her do this, and kind of started thinking in my head of all these really character possibilities for this woman, and why she did this, and what that painting meant to her. When you write a song, I feel like you might have the thing that you want to write about. So I had this situation, but there's also that element of would you really want to say what's at the heart of this song? And so I wrote part of this song at writing retreat that I go to a couple times a year. It's in Northampton. It's run by Narissa Nields, who's a great songwriter.
Oh yeah, sure.
The band The Nields. It's all sorts of writers, songwriters, memoirists, fiction writers, etc. But she usually gives little prompts, and then we'll go off and write for a while and come back, and people will share. And so I had written part of this song, and I was trying to figure out where I wanted to go with it. And then her prompt for this one session was a poem by Walt Whitman. It's a very, very short poem, and it's just gorgeous. A noiseless, patient spider. A noiseless, patient spider, I marked where on a little promontory it stood isolated, marked how to explore the vacant, vast surrounding. It launched forth filament, filament, filament out of itself, ever unreeling them, ever tirelessly speeding them. And you, O my soul, where you stand, surrounded, detached in measureless oceans of space, ceaselessly musing, venturing, throwing, seeking the spheres to connect them, till the bridge you will need be formed, till the ductile anchor hold, till the gossamer thread you fling catch somewhere, O my soul. There are a couple lines of that really just made me go, aha, this is what I'm trying to say. Maybe I'll play the first verse and then talk about that and how I was trying to sort of set up the story. Okay. Does that sound good?
Yeah, that sounds great.
I walked 20 miles in bare feet as a child to see your face, dragging hope and fear and loneliness across the Spanish plain. My arms and chest were leather brown, my mouth was desert dry, but my thirst evaporated in the shadow of your eyes. So I'm going to stop there and talk about that, if that's okay. But so really how I was trying to set up the story, and my intention when I was writing the song was really that I wanted it kind of to be this epic song, like this epic tale and saga, not necessarily in length of the song, but just in kind of the scope of it. And so I think, so what I tried to do there in that first verse with that, I walked 20 miles in bare feet as a child to see your face, was really set up that kind of, that mythological aura to the song, and really starts it as, you know, with her as a child. I thought that sort of started the journey. And really setting up instantly that kind of dragging hope and fear and loneliness, like all of the human junk that we all have, that she's sort of carrying all of this with her, all of the complication and the sadness and the beauty of being a human, to the specific place where she sees this beautiful fresco, and really setting up kind of an obsession with it too. I mean, I think that's you know how sometimes when you write, you don't necessarily intend something to be a part of the story, but it creeps in there. And so I think throughout the song, there's really this kind of sort of obsessive and almost erotic overtone to how she relates to this fresco, which really becomes a part of the story. And I think, you know, it's interesting for me. I am not religious at all. I should say that. I have literally never been to church. I think I went once one Christmas with my family, but I really don't have any sort of religious background, but I've always been kind of fascinated by that kind of holy, erotic line, like the ecstasy factor, for lack of a better term. So then it continues. Now I walk into that holy house, a pilgrim bowed and bent, seeking gossamer connection, ever-throwing filament. I kneel and light the candle, say a prayer and genuflect, but only gazing on your golden lips can make me feel correct. So this is really, from that first part of the first verse to this part, there's really a jump in time. So, you know, it starts as a child and it sets up that relationship with this work of art, and then, and not just a work of art, but also, you know, this spiritual connection as well. And then we jump to her being a pilgrim bowed and bent, means that she's old. Some of that language really I lifted just directly from that poem, the word gossamer and filament, you know, throwing filament, because it's about a spider throwing out its filament, trying to make these connections, and then he, you know, connects that to, my soul is trying to do the same thing, always trying to throw out these gossamer threads. And I thought it sort of put the song in focus for me in terms of the connection that she was trying to make with this work. Right. And with, you know, and with a greater, you know, sense of holiness, and, you know, I think sort of the implication is that those connections didn't necessarily exist in a real way for her.
One of the interesting things about the song is like that she, you know, in this first verse, you're sort of taking her from, you know, being a child to being old, and she's kind of more towards the end of her life, and you know, and there's sort of a theme of suffering all through that, but also through the song, you know, in the next verse you talk about the painting starting to decay and things. So she and the painting have kind of grown old together.
Yes, bingo.
There you go.
You got it. Yeah, and that's something that I really wanted to get across. And I think, you know, looking at with the painting being, you know, is painted in the 30s, she's an 80-year-old woman. So it's roughly the same age that she is. And that's absolutely sort of what I was going for, that, you know, in addition to that part of her motivation for doing this is that trying to turn back time. So she sees this thing that she loves that's sort of decaying, and she has been decaying herself. And so in trying to restore that, there's also some element in there of really, trying to turn back time, like trying to recapture your own youth in some way. So we ended at blah, 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 but only gazing on your golden lips can make me feel correct. It's a parable of gratitude and cavernous cruel faith in this strange misshapen beauty of Cecilia and the saints. So I think, the chorus of this song is relatively short. I will say, too, I think musically it's melodic, but it's not like a flashy sort of melody. It really focuses on the lyric because I think the lyric is so dense.
Yeah, it's a kind of a simple sort of lilting melody.
Very
There's
simple.
a lot of sort of downward things.
Yeah.
To use the technical term.
Yes, downward things, absolutely. And I do use, I love a minor 7 chord. So this has that sort of, it's the 6 minor 7, to the 2 minor 7, and then that sort of a weird 4. So and part of what that was going for is kind of just this lush feeling that I think adds that epic quality, hopefully.
Right.
But yeah, it's a pretty, in terms of the progression, pretty straightforward, melodically pretty straightforward. There's no bridge in the song. And the chorus is relatively short, too. One thing about that chorus is that it takes everything else in the song is first person, and that sort of takes it out into this third person perspective, which I think is I think it's a thing that happens when you're thinking of sort of parables traditionally, or allegories, that sort of thing. That there is this kind of omniscient presence, sort of overlooking and being like, well, the point of the story is
right.
in there, and that's sort of what that does too. And so, I think that's pretty straightforward, maybe not. But I did see this situation as being a parable. Really what it's a parable of for me, what it represents is, as I said, that divine intention and human failing. And I hit on that kind of gratitude and cavernous cruel faith, because I think that's where that intention comes from. That this is her act of gratitude, sort of as she nears the end of her life, to try to give back, and for a lack of a better term, to this work of art, this symbol that's sort of given so much to her, that means to her, and the cavernous cruel faith is because it is, I think, that sort of that motivation, that belief, really led her to kind of a bad place, as I think it does. I think that I think that can be, that kind of faith can be both sort of beautiful, and it can lead a person to great things, but I think sometimes it also leads you without thought to a place that's not so excellent. So the second verse really sets up that kind of that aging, like you were saying, the decaying, and her looking at this fresco that has really succumb to the forces of time, the cruel forces of time, as she has done. And so she's sort of, let me play a little bit. So, I have watched you as you flickered. I have watched you dull and fade, as the glowing, tireless growl of time coerced you to decay. And oh, Santa Maria, for this man that I behold, send strength coursing through this body, emanating from my soul. Please bless these trembling fingers, bless the shiver in my hand, bless the naked, blazing, empty space in every mortal man. Bless the pigments and the brushes, bless the deep burned browns and reds, bless these pious, pure intentions, bless what commenced instead. And then into the chorus. But that really, that imploring, that "O Santa Maria," for this man that I behold. The title of the fresco is "Ecce Homo," what actually
Right.
means "behold the man," so that sort of works its way in there too. And then, bless her intentions were, I do think they were pure, at least in the narrative that I have in my head. Those intentions were pure. And, what came out of that,
Right.
it didn't work out, but it's still, it's still significant, and there's still this sort of lovely element to it. Yeah, so this final verse, I think, is where it sort of kicks in. I mean, this is kind of where the act happens. And this is where a lot of that eroticism that I was talking about earlier really comes into it too, because, sort of, I think it's, you have set up in the first verse with that kind of epic, that epic context and the, sort of this span of her life. And then the second verse, you have her sort of preparing for this, to try to do this restoration and kind of summoning the will and the help of the saints in doing it, and then in the third verse it's like she's there, and so this is where she has kind of the this is sort of her opportunity to like touch this thing too. I mean, that's how I feel like the song is very visual for me. Like I could sort of picture it all like a little movie, and maybe part of that has to do with the fact that it is talking about a work of art. But I sort of see her like coming to this church, week after week through 80 years, her whole life, and sort of gazing upon this fresco, and then this is where she finally sort of gets that courage and that opportunity to actually touch it. And that's where it gets a little sexy.
Yeah.
oddly sexy.
That last verse in particular is
Yeah.
Do you want to maybe sing the last half of that?
Sure, I'd be happy to. And when I finally touch your hair, it's like a floating fever dream. Can you feel me? Are you reaching the sublime or the obscene? Please accept my true apologies, my passion and my ache, and this graceless sacred offering left tumbling from your gates. So that gets into, when I sort of touch your hair, it's like that's kind of the eroticism, but the floating fever dream is really, it puts it in this kind of unreal context too, that, it's not quite so literal, or the emotion that she feels around it sort of goes beyond the physical act itself. So it's graceless and sacred. It's both the good and the bad, and it's the same way with the sublime and the obscene, and the wretched resurrection. So it's a lot of that kind of duality comes throughout the song, because that's really, I think that sort of for me kind of summed up what that this incident was about in many ways.
Mm-hmm. And you said that this is the verse where it like really kicks in, kind of thing. In the recording, I noticed that there's no gap between the two halves.
Yes, yeah. So it has that, and I think the all that alliteration kind of gives it that drive too. Yeah. So there's not that pause. It's like she's just going for it.
Yeah.
Right then.
And it's sort of, and in the previous verse with sort of the repetition of the bless the etc. That kind of propels you into that last verse as well.
Yeah.
So one other thing I wanted to talk about a little bit is the recording that you sent me, which is which I'll put at the end of this so everyone can hear it, the whole thing, put it all together. So first of all, that's a recording that you're making for your hoped for new album.
Yes.
It will come out at the end of the summer, you were saying?
Yeah, it should be the end of the summer, so late August, maybe early September. But I'm really excited about it. It's all the recording process is almost through. I'm doing it at Dirt Floor, recording studio in Chester, Connecticut, working with Eric Lichter, who's just amazing, and he plays a lot of the instruments that you hear on the track that you have, and has just been really fantastic to work with, and I think really got that kind of lushness. that I was going for with how I wanted it to sound. And it's all analog. I don't know if you knew that.
Oh, I
but
didn't know that. No.
Yeah. So, and all of the instruments are real. It's with everything digital, you can patch in like notes here and there. You can auto-tune yourself, all of that. And you really can't with analog. And I know there's, it's funny throughout, I sort of had a little problem just really hitting that note on when you get to the chorus. It's a parable of, and so, and it was something I kind of had to, I thought the vocal take was pretty good otherwise, but I was like, all right, I just have to accept these moments. And it was sort of that same, I was like, well, the song is all about human failing. So it makes sense to have, that you have sort of these little moments of imperfection in it. Yeah, but I'm very happy with how the recording turned out. So I hope everyone likes it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing it. I enjoyed the rough mix that you included.
Yes, unmastered.
I have no idea when this podcast is going out, but I imagine it will be by the end of summer.
Yes.
So keep an eye out for that. So if people want to listen to their music, what should they do?
Oh, to my music?
Yes.
You can go to TraciePotochnik.com. I will spell that for you. It's TraciePotochnik.com. Right now, that links right to my Bandcamp site that has an EP, a home recorded EP that I put out last year. Although I am in the process of developing a full regular old website. So you can find some of my music there. I'm also on Reverb Nation. There are a few different songs up there as well. I have a Facebook page as well, facebook.com/TraciePotochnik, and that has dates on it. And the website will have it as well. And I have a YouTube channel as well.
You have
so
YouTube?
If you look me up on YouTube, there's some videos up there.
And you're on Twitter, I know. That's the first episode of the Tell Me About Your Song podcast. My name's Jacob Haller. You can find my website at music.jwgh.org. I'm a musician myself, and you can listen to my songs there if you feel like it. There's a Tumblr blog for this podcast, tumblr.com/blog/yoursongpodcast, all one word. That's it. And so we'll take this out. Here's the recording of the song we've been talking about, Cecilia and the Saints. And thanks for listening.
I walked 20 miles in bare feet as a child to see your face, dragging hope and fear and loneliness across the Spanish plain. My arms and chest were a leather brown, my mouth was desert dry, but my thirst evaporated in the shadow of your eyes. Now I walk into that holy house of pilgrim bowed and bent, seeking gossamer connection, ever throwing filament. I kneel and light the candle, say a prayer and genuflect, but only gazing on your golden lips can make me feel correct. It's a parable of gratitude and cavernous cruel fate in this strange misshapen beauty of Cecilia and the Saints. I have watched you as you flickered. I have watched you dull and fade as the glowing, tireless growl of time coerced you to decay. And oh, Santa Maria, for this man that I behold, send strength coursing through this body, emanating from my soul. Please bless these trembling fingers, bless the shiver in my hand, bless the naked, blazing empty space in every mortal man. Bless the pigments and the brushes, bless the deep burnt browns and reds, bless these pious pure intentions, bless what commenced down, watching wretched resurrection hang upon your thorny crown. I lean into the withered comforts of your flowing robes, for at last we are together, at last we are alone. And when I finally touch your hair, it's like a floating fever dream. Can you feel me? Are you reaching the sublime or the obscene? Please accept my true apology, my passion and my ache, and this graceless sacred offering left tumbling from your gates. It's a parable of gratitude and cavernous cruel faith in this strange misshapen beauty of Cecilia and the saints. It's a parable of gratitude and cavernous cruel faith in this strange misshapen beauty of Cecilia and the saints.
All right.
All right.
Okay.
We made it. We did it.
We did it.